Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahalo, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, in the shadow of the Great Blue Hills. We are so very happy and absolutely honored that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show, telling your kids' teachers, the librarians, the guidance counselors, your youth minister, all about the show, and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, CastBox, Player FM, Audible, or wherever you find your favorite shows. We are celebrating girl bosses today. We have two amazing founders and CEOs. Lee Ann Borders is joining us first. She is here to celebrate Bookalicious. What an amazing website this is. A great service to match kids with books they'll love. We'll also be talking to Nikki Warren. Nikki is the founder and CEO of Toothbrush Toys. I can tell you our neighbor, Nikki and the team sent me some samples, and the kids in my neighborhood love them. So I'm really looking forward to it. You are in for a treat. This is going to be a fantastic episode of Reading with Your Kids. Hey, my friends, here's something to think about. What if mistakes weren't something to fear, but something to celebrate? In It's Okay Not to Know by Brenda Doe, young readers meet Bink, a lovable little monster who worries they're not good enough when they struggle or make mistakes. But then, Bink discovers a powerful truth. Every uh-oh is an opportunity. Every question is a chance to grow. And every child deserves to know perfection isn't what makes you special. Curiosity, courage, and self-love do. A must-read for parents, teachers, and anyone who wants to help kids build resilience and confidence. Get your copy of It's Okay Not to Know by Brenda Doe today, because learning begins when we stop fearing the unknown. This episode is brought to you by The Mystery of Mystic Mountain, a great middle grade novel by Janet Fox. Becca Soloway's perfect summer goes up in smoke when her mom flees a looming divorce by dragging Becca to a Montana resort. To make matters worse, her mom's hasty booking lands them not at a luxury spa, but at an aging dude ranch called Far Away. Becca is miserable until she meets the wrangler's son, John, who shows her what might be the first clue to a century-old mystery, the lost treasure of a Robin Hood-like outlaw known as Pearl Handle Pete. You and your kids are going to love this book, The Mystery of Mystic Mountain by Janet Fox. It deserves a place in your family library. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Marie Nichols was recently on my Connecticut Book Festival's podcast, and what a delightful woman. One of the things she said really struck home with me. She said, parents nurture with care, siblings are taught to share, but grandparents embrace the dares. We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest is a colorful, fun-filled book where this grandmother dares to embark on a wild journey with her grandson into the dinosaur forest. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on bookshop.org. You and your kids and you and your grandkids are going to love this book. It's We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Join us right now from Northern California. Our guest is here today. She is celebrating a great online service. It's called Bookalicious. What a great name. I love that. Please welcome to the show, Leanne Borders. Hey, Leanne, how are you?
Jed, I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Delighted to have you on. You are the driving force behind Bookalicious. Am I right?
Well, I am the founder, but it is a major team effort.
That's awesome. So tell us what it is. This is, from what I gather when I visited your website, this is a different way for families, for kids to experience books.
Yes, exactly. So Bookalicious is a website, bookalicious.com, and we make real-time personalized book recommendations for kids that are based on their individual interests. So we match them with books that they really, really want to read.
Cool. So let's go through the process. I'm a parent. I have what people call a reluctant reader. Maybe a guy, and he's can't get him to open up a book. He loves the video games, and I go on to bookalicious.com. And what's the first thing I do?
The first thing you do is you have your son play our game. He will build what we call a bookmoji. And bookmojis are avatars that you get to dress up and accessorize. You choose clothing and costumes. You can add pets and accessories, things like sporting equipment or musical instruments. And all of that, which will reflect, who you are and what you like, is used for us to match great books to those interests.
Now, I know somebody out there is going to be thinking, oh, they set this up. He gave the example of the kid who loved the video game so that Leanne could hit this out of the park. I swear that just came out of my empty mind. I had no idea that this was a process. But it's ingenious because I'm guessing there's a lot of kids out there who parents struggle to get them to open up a book. And this is a great way to do it. They're loving video games, and so hey, come on, let's play this game.
Well, the idea really was that if we're going to focus on kids, we want to make it fun, and so we could certainly ask them to look at a list or take a survey, but wouldn't it be better if they could play a game?
Mm-hmm. I agree. So help me understand this. So based on the pets that the kid chooses and the clothes and all this, do you just feed this into ChatGPT or is there a science behind this? How can whatever code the kid decides to put on their avatar, how can that give you an idea of what kind of books they might love?
I love that. Okay. Well, first of all, just a slight disclaimer. I like to jokingly refer to myself as a recovering lawyer with a business degree. What I do not have is a degree in computer science. So I'm happy to walk you through, but understand where I'm coming from here. Currently, what we have, I think you call it an expert system. You use layers of rules-based algorithms. Basically, it's like a series of steps. If this, then that, kind of like a logic tree. Mm-hmm. And then those steps help determine how kids are matched with books. And so we have layers of these algorithms that relate to curation, because we have a whole team of curators. They're teachers and librarians, led by the wonderful Dr. Lorian Hunter, who is our director of curation. And so we have rules that have to do with what are the best books out there, rules that have to do with how they relate to the assets that the kids are choosing to make their bookmojis, and then other information like, what grade are you in, that type of thing, to help match them with the best books that we can.
That's both amazing and a little bit terrifying, to be honest with you.
I don't think it's terrifying, but tell me why you think it's terrifying. I'd love to hear, and hopefully
it's not so much terrifying in the idea of books and helping kids find books, but what terrifies me is, and this has happened when I think about something, and then I go to Amazon, and Amazon says, "Hey, we think you'd like to buy this," and it's like, wait a minute, I didn't type that into anything, but I guess my behaviors are telling the algorithms that I need it.
Well, remember that with kids, especially, there's a whole layer of protections that are out there. There's something called the Child Online Privacy and Protection Act, which means that we can't be collecting and then doing bad things with the information. So really what it means is that we can aggregate what we find, and then in kind of an anonymous way, we can feed that back. And we actually work with a lot of schools. In fact, I think about 4,500 schools now have used our platform and our programs, and we share that data back with them. That's primarily what we do with it. We use it to make great book recommendations, and we also let them know, hey, your fourth graders love books about unicorns, and wouldn't it be great if you could share those books with them?
Awesome. That's fun. Now, I know that you are recommending, or I'm assuming you're recommending great books, because I see one of the books that we've celebrated here on the podcast right over your shoulder, Louder Than Hunger.
Yes.
And so how does it, but you said you have this team of curators. How does a book get to be on your list?
Okay. A lot of thought goes into it. First of all, we start with tons of books. Right now, I would say that on the website itself, there are more than 40,000 titles. So a lot of choice. But then it goes through a process, and that process involves things like, has the book been professionally reviewed, and was it a good review? Has the book won any awards? Is the book popular with kids, whether popular with kids from what we can see or popular with kids, more broadly? And we take all of that information plus what the curator thinks of the book. Every book that we have on our site, a real human has actually looked at it and made a decision. And then we put all of that information together, and that's how we decide if a book gets on the site. And then that also determines kind of where in the order a book might pop up.
Okay. So this isn't something that an author would pay to be on a list.
No. And in fact, you know what? That's a learning that I took from my husband back in the book company days. Mm-hmm. And that was that when they had the opportunity, there's something, it used to be called slotting fees. Like you could pay to have your new release, your new book featured on the front table in the store. But my husband and my brother-in-law, they just wanted the best books to be out there. And so they never took a dime in those placement or slotting fees because they wanted their front tables to be what they thought that people would really enjoy.
Yeah. And we should just mention, you and I talked about this before we started recording, that your husband and brother-in-law were the founders of Borders Books.
Yes, that's right.
A place where so many people found so many books for years and years and years. Tell me, how did Bookalicious come about? What need were you looking to fix, or how did you come upon this need?
Well, a few different things. To start with, kids are struggling around reading. I think they have for a long time. I'm sure you're very aware of this, right? And in fact, the new, I guess colloquially it's called the Nation's Report Card, right? That just came out about 6 weeks ago, I think. And they've been tracking reading for kids in 4th and 8th grade for, I think, over 30 years now. And it was the lowest collection of scores in reading since they started tracking. So struggling with reading is not something that's new. But on top of that, there's a ton of research out there that tells you, what supports reading, like what do kids take away with them? What motivates them and engages them in reading? So those were kind of the foundational ideas, but really it started with my experience as a parent. My husband and I have, between us, 3 daughters, and I was volunteering at school and reading at home, and I basically discovered that they didn't necessarily like what I liked. They liked what they liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had the privilege of serving on a couple of nonprofit boards that were literacy focused for about 10 years. And that's where I started learning about access and the importance of high interest books and the ability to choose those books.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had, a little bit of a benefit from the fact that Lewis and Tom had founded Borders. They created this amazing inventory management and book buying system back in the day that allowed them to customize the books in each store to the community where they were located. And so we thought, how cool would it be to take the next step and personalize to the individual reader?
Yeah, that's very, very cool. You were talking about that report card.
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember seeing that report card, and it was saying that only 40% of kids in 4th and 8th grade are reading on grade level. Am I in the ballpark there?
Yeah, you're almost exactly right. What I think it said, it depends on what is meant by reading on grade level. Because if you remember, they have like proficient and
Right.
basic and below and above and all that. I think it's actually even scarier than that. If you want to define reading on grade level as proficient, then 69% of 4th graders are reading below grade level. And 40%, I think that's where you're remembering the 40 from, 40% are below basic, which means they don't even have partial mastery of what they're supposed to have in order to be successful 4th graders.
I just have to. That is horrifying.
It is.
We should be ringing an alarm. We've talked a lot about education. My beautiful wife taught special needs kids in Boston for over 34 years, and she made sure that her kids were reading despite their challenges. But I don't know how we've gotten to this point. That the pandemic was around, but I don't think that explains 40% with basically almost zero reading skills.
It's really rough, and there has been, a really interesting trend the past decade, really. I'm sure you've had guests on and talked about the science of reading and the importance of phonics and phonemic awareness and fluency, all those things that are so important to support reading. And what we're trying to do is help the kids practice, because I think, most people would agree that you get better at something if you practice.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you're a wonderful person. You mentioned that you've been on charitable boards. And so I assume you could be doing this out of the goodness of your heart, but you also said you have this big team behind you. So I'm curious as to how Bookalicious is staying in business. Are you finding books and then selling kids books, or is there a fee to use the service, or how does that work?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because yes, we are a business. We sell books. We sell physical books.
Okay.
So the site itself is free. And I will say, because access is so important, one of the, I think, pretty cool things about what we did, we have a button on every page. We have what is called like a book detail page. You go and you learn about the book, right? You can look inside it. You can find out more information about the author, that type of thing. On every one of those pages, we have a button called Borrow a Book. And that takes you through the amazing WorldCat system to help you find that book in the nearest public library.
Ah.
But we also want to sell you the book if your means permit, and deliver it right to your door.
Well, very, very cool. I really love that. I'm myself at an age, I'm almost 100, so I'm at an age where I really love experiencing books through audiobooks. And if I'm going to read, I choose to read on a Kindle, because usually when I'm reading, I'm in the gym. And I spent many years trying to figure out how to open up a book when I'm on an elliptical machine and hold the old paperbacks with elastics and all that other kind of stuff. So I'm a big fan in technology when it comes to books. However, there are a lot of studies that show having as few as 20 physical books in your home can greatly increase the chance that your kid will graduate from university. So I'm thinking that, yeah, ebooks, audiobooks are great, but I think it's also pretty important to have a physical book library in your home.
Yes. Yes. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. One of the greatest predictors of academic success for a child is the presence of books in the home.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest predictors of a child reading a book is having chosen that book himself.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a way, because one of the things, we had LeVar Burton on the podcast back when we first started back in 2018. What a generous thing he did for this little podcast that no one knew about. But he came on, and one of the most memorable moments of that interview was, I asked him, where did this love of literacy come from, this passion that you have for literacy? And he said, Jed, my mom, I remember my mom always, she was reading a magazine, she was reading a book. So obviously, us as parents modeling for our kids, letting them see us read books is very important. Are there ways that an adult can use Bookalicious to find a book that they may be interested in?
Well, if you're talking about finding a book for themselves to read, unless they really enjoy children's books or young adult books, then probably not. But as a book to read aloud to a child, 100%. We have thousands and thousands of beautiful books for reading aloud. And I do want to say, because this is an interesting point that you were making, and I wondered if you were going in this direction, that there is quite a bit of research, I think you're starting to say, About digital versus physical books for kids, right?
I'd be interested in what you have to say about that. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, it's not really what I have to say. It's what I've read,
Okay.
which I guess is kind of appropriate given the subject that we're talking about. There's this wonderful brain researcher. I don't know if you've met her or had her on your show. Her name is Marianne Wolf. She well, maybe you should. She is the director for the Center for, I think it's Dyslexia and Diverse Learners at UCLA. And she's a brain researcher and she's an author.
Okay.
And about, gosh, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I came across her book called Reader Come Home. And the subtitle is The Reading Brain and a Digital World. And she talks about how important reading physical books is for kids. It can impact things like comprehension and retention and even things like empathy, which is so interesting because apparently your brain functions differently when you're reading something on a page versus when you're reading something digitally. So I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I read, I have my iPad and my Kindle app. And, the audio is amazing, as you said, especially when you're trying to stay on the treadmill. But for kids in particular, there are a lot of benefits to those physical books. And apparently there are now not only studies, but meta studies that are coming out that are finding the same thing.
It's interesting. We're working on launching a new podcast for kids here in our Reading with Your Kids family. And as I'm going over the scripts, I have to print that out. Even though I love reading books digitally, when it comes to reading to edit and to fully comprehend something, I need that on the page.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I've never would think of experiencing a picture book on a screen because I think just that holding the kids in there while you're holding the book and they're in between your arms and because I had 2 kids and they just fit in there perfectly. I think that's so wonderful. But I can also see how it could be beneficial to read those physical books together with your kids or co-read with your kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, to me, and I think most people feel this way, a picture book is like a piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ability to, hold it and see it and even that tangible bit. You mentioned, I think it was before we started recording, you mentioned John Shu
Yep.
and his fantastic book, Louder Than Hunger, is just, such a remarkable book. He loves to smell books. It's one of the cutest things. He talks with kids. He does these fantastic student assemblies, and he talks about the smell of books. But it's true. I mean, those that kind of visceral reaction to books, I think, is really important.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you the question I asked LeVar. Obviously, there's a passion for books in your family. Your husband and brother-in-law founded Borders and ran that for so long. You created Bookalicious. Where did this passion for reading and books in your family come from?
Well, for my husband, I can say that when he finished college, he did about a year in graduate school in Boston, and he discovered, yeah, right? Yay, Boston. He discovered so many fantastic small bookstores all over the city, and I think he just fell in love with them. So that was a early driver toward the idea that he and Tom should open a bookstore. And they went back to Ann Arbor. Louis and Tom at different times had both been connected with the University of Michigan, and so it was like the perfect place. It's a college town and all of that. For me, I was a library kid.
Mm.
I was one of those kids who, for various reasons, was shy, and libraries were a really safe place. And I had this wonderful librarian at the elementary school where I went. Her name was Mrs. Collins, and she just gave me book after book. And at one point, I ran out of fiction. And so I started reading all of the biographies in alphabetical order. Gives you an idea
Awesome.
of my childhood. But it was just a wonderful, warm, safe, nurturing place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love books. And then as I got older, I read everything my mom read. She'd read the kids' books that I was reading, and I picked up that habit with our kids too. It was really fun. We'd read together.
That's beautiful, and that's what reading with your kids is all about, and just encouraging those moments and continue to read with your kids long after they become independent readers. Co-read with them, and even there's a lot of benefit to reading out loud with our teenagers. There's so much and so many benefits. For me, the best benefit is the bonding that happens.
Oh yeah.
So, you're mentioning your husband in Boston, and when I was much younger, there were those little bookstores. That place still exists. Bologna, Italy. I was over in Bologna, Italy last year at this time for the International Children's Book Festival. And on every corner, there was a cathedral and a little bookstore. And it was I thought it was so cool. The books were all in Italian, so it couldn't do much for me. But Leanne, please remind everybody where they can go to find out more about Bookalicious and how they can find some great curated books for their kids.
So it's bookalicious.com, and it's basically the combination of the word book with the word delicious. So it's BOOKELICIOUS.com.
Yeah. And was that your idea?
It was.
Good for you. 5 stars for that. I love it.
Thank you.
We've had a great time speaking to the driving force behind Bookalicious.com. Our guest has been Leanne Borders. Leanne, thanks so very much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey families, would you like to share a miracle with your kids? At the Wolf Conservation Center, hope was fading. The endangered Mexican wolves dreamed of a pup, but none had come. Until one tiny miracle changed everything. Meet Trumpet, a real-life wolf pup whose incredible birth brought joy, hope, and a lesson in conservation. Trumpet the Miracle Wolf, written by Leocadia George, is a heartwarming true story that will inspire your whole family. Teach your kids the power of hope, love, and protecting endangered species. Get your copy today and join the wild adventure. Hey, parents, grandparents, caregivers, and teachers, are you looking for a fun way to teach important values to your kids? Check out Timothy'sLessons.com.
It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. Teaching life lessons to his friends. It's Timothy's Lessons. Forward thinking activities. It's Timothy's Lessons. Building confidence and mental strength. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. Wonderful fun sing-along songs. It's Timothy's Lessons. Important lessons on key values. It's Timothy's Lessons. Children's books and uplifting stories. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values.
Check it out today, Timothy'sLessons.com. My friends, if you have ever thought about owning a business that's fun, rewarding, and makes a valuable contribution to kids' education, well, Brooklyn Robot Foundry is calling your name. I recently met Ginny Young. She's the founder of Brooklyn Robot Foundry. And let me tell you, she is incredible. Her passion for getting kids excited about STEAM, that's STEM plus art, it's contagious. I'm telling you. This isn't your average kids program. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is all about hands-on, screen-free STEAM fun. These kids get to build a different robot each class and take it home with them afterwards. Kids love it. Parents are raving about it. And now you can own a franchise and bring this incredible experience to families in your community. Now, this isn't your typical franchise. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is a mobile, flexible business with a deep curriculum that's making a real impact in schools and communities around the country. Franchise owners get a proven curriculum, full training, and support from a passionate team. So what are you waiting for? Please visit bit.ly/RobotJed. That's bit.ly/RobotJed. And let them know you heard about it on Reading with Your Kids. Join us right now from beautiful Southern California. Our guest today is the driving force behind something that I know kids love because kids in my life love it. Toothbrushtoys.com is the place to go to find out more. Please welcome to the show, Nikki Warren. Hey, Nikki, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm really excited because I have a feeling that I am talking to the next Mark Cuban or Mr. Wonderful or, the next great entrepreneur because you've invented something, a product that at least the kids that I showed it to think is incredible.
Yeah, that's funny you say that because I love the Sharks and love Shark Tank. So that's, I would love to be like them one day. But yes, I believe our product is very innovative and different and hopefully will, make a change, make a difference for a lot of families one day.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the toys or it's a toothbrush, but it's something that's fun for kids. So tell us all about it, please.
Yeah. So essentially the idea was to reframe the way that kids view brushing. So in most households, when kids are first learning to brush their teeth on their own, it's not something that's easy. They're kind of, reluctant to do it. There's a lot of brushing battles in a lot of houses because kids argue and the parents are trying to get them to brush and they don't want to. And it's just a whole negative experience for a lot of families. So the idea was to change that experience into something that's positive from the start when kids are first learning to brush their teeth. And in turn, they'll develop better brushing habits, better brushing techniques, and then have better dental hygiene. So we tackled this with a simple approach by making it simply a toy. So it's a real toy that kids can hold in their hand. They see it. They can tell it's a toy. It's reusable. It's high quality. It's collectible. and then there's a replaceable brush head attached. So they can collect the toy, reuse it over and over again, and replace the toothbrush as needed. And just that by itself makes it something that's fun and different, because kids never, imagine that a toy will also be a toothbrush. It's not something that they've seen before. So it definitely catches the attention of kids right off the bat. And then we also have a storytelling element to kind of create an immersive experience around that character beyond just the toothbrush.
Yeah, each box that we received from you folks came with a little book that I'm guessing told the backstory of the characters.
Yeah, so each character has a story. The book is designed to be 2 minutes long. There's also an animated version of the story that's 2 minutes long. So the idea is that for younger kids during bedtime, when parents read a book, typically it's the same time as brushing teeth. So they can read this book, which is about the character. It kind of gets them in, the mindset of that character's toothbrush, which, goes along with and helps create that positive experience. And then the animation is for older kids if they want to watch it while brushing their teeth. It keeps them brushing for the full 2 minutes. It's, again, a story about the character. It engages them, and it keeps them entertained and just, having fun with their toothbrush.
Yeah. I'm really curious because you're a young woman. and you had this idea in college. I'm guessing that you weren't struggling and fighting with your own child about brushing their teeth. How did this idea occur to you?
Yeah, so I would say it was a bit random. People always ask me if I'm a dentist or have dentists in the family, and neither of those are true. I babysat a lot growing up in high school and college, and I was around a lot of young kids. And I actually studied entrepreneurship in college. So in one of my classes, we had to kind of, brainstorm a business idea, come up with something new. It was more so for a class assignment. I didn't realize mine was going to become real. But like I said, it was a bit random, but I knew from my experience with kids that brushing teeth wasn't fun. And it, that translates over to adulthood as well. So the idea just came to mind, and then over time it developed into what it is today.
Yeah. Well, we recently had a dentist on, and we're talking about how very important good oral hygiene is. For an old guy like me, if I'm not taking care of my teeth, it could lead to a heart attack. And when I first learned that, it blew me away. It's like, what do my teeth have to do with my heart?
Right.
But it's true. And we're learning that, especially for young kids, getting them into the habit of taking care of their teeth is real important. And so I'm just super glad that you created this. But I'm curious, lots of young people take classes in entrepreneurship, and they have this idea like, I want to have my own company someday. But to be able to come out of college at, I think you said 23, and launch the product at 23, that takes a certain amount of confidence, courage, some might say silliness. I don't know. But how were you able to do that when so many other young people are like, no, I'm not ready yet. I need to wait.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to grow up with parents who were entrepreneurs. My dad specifically was always coming up with new business ideas, and ever since he graduated college, that's all he did was just, trial and error, different businesses, different products, and then some succeeded, some didn't. So I was lucky enough to grow up with that as an influence, which made me want to do it at a young age. And then I also had the privilege of being able to work with my dad on it, so I wasn't fully alone. He was able to, help me learn how to actually make the business real from the start to finish. So I wasn't on my own when I was doing that. I had his support and his help through that.
That's great. And I imagine it, to do this, it's not like you can go out into your garage and create the toys, or maybe you can create the initial toy, but you have to connect with manufacturers to actually get the things made. Did you have to go overseas to get that done?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a complicated process because it was like creating two products. So for the toy, we had to get molds, and we had to do tooling and all these complicated processes that I had no knowledge of, and neither did my dad. So that was more so, talking to people and getting references and figuring that out along the way. But first we had to figure out the tooling and the actual molds for the toys. Then after that, we found a production company that works with a lot of factories overseas. So it was done in China, and they took the molds and the creation of the toys and then created the toothbrush insert with factories that often do a lot of toothbrushes. So this wasn't new to them, but it was definitely a very lengthy process since it wasn't just, one product. It's a real toy and a toothbrush. So there was a lot that went into it, and I had no knowledge on that, and neither did my family. So it was a lot of learning.
Yeah. I bet. And in the box that we got, there was a female character and a male character. Are there just two, or do you have a series of characters, or you're planning to have a series of characters?
Yeah, so right now we have 6 characters. 2 are girl focused, and then we have 2 animals, so they're, gender neutral, and then 1 is a boy. So we do have 6 characters right now. I hope to one day launch a whole series of characters. We have a lot of ideas, and a lot of, characters drawn out. So that's something that is the goal once we grow and have the ability to do that. But currently we have 6 characters. Each one has a story. Each one has, their fun name, their animation. And then we do have some accessories as well, like the storybooks, and then a 2-minute timer and replacement brush heads. But the goal is to expand the brand and offer many more characters and many more products.
That's wonderful. I imagine we might even see an animated series with these characters at some point.
Yes, that's another goal. I have a lot of dreams for this brand once I have the resources and the ability to grow it. But that's definitely a goal, is to create a series of animations and books. So it's not just one, because of course no one's going to want to watch the same animation or read the same book every night. So that's definitely something that is the goal as well, is to have a whole series along with these characters.
Yeah. I imagine there might be some parent out there going, yeah, toys, but, is it a good toothbrush? Can we count on this giving our kids a good cleaning experience?
Yeah, so we pride ourselves on the fact that we develop these with pediatric dentists. We realize that the toy not only serves the purpose as being a fun toy, but it's actually easier for kids to brush with. For small hands, the thick handle is easier to hold on to, easier to grasp, and easier to maneuver. And it helps with dexterity and neuromuscular skills. So that actually is a plus. And it's also a bit strange that isn't done very often with kids' toothbrushes, because all the dentists that we spoke to said that actually will help them. It's actually easier for them when the handle's thick. And we see that a lot with parent reviews as well. And then the bristles, we developed those with the help of dentists as well. So this wasn't just, it serves a dual purpose. It's a effective and impactful toothbrush, but also the toy and fun element.
Yeah, I bet. How does it, one of the things I often ask the authors, sometimes in English and sometimes in whatever language that was, is have they taken the time to sit down and realize how many families have, enjoyed sitting down, cuddling up together, reading their book together? Have you taken the time to sit down and to just reflect on where you are and the success that you've had so far? I know you have all these other goals, but have you been able to sit down and say, I did something pretty cool here?
Yeah, so I definitely have high expectations for myself, and a lot of the time I'm thinking of what's next or what else can I do to, have more progress and grow the brand. But there are a lot of times where I hear someone say that they got the toothbrush from their dentist and they love it, or I see a positive review, or I go to an event and I meet people who love it. And that's definitely very rewarding. And I definitely do feel proud when those moments happen. It's, it's hard because as a small business owner, there's so much I want to do, and there's a lot of places I want to go with the brand, and I want it to, grow as much as possible, but it's a slow process. So it's definitely helpful to have those reminders and have customers and have kids and have random people just tell me how much they love the product, or how their kids still use it 2 years later, or how it actually changed the bedtime routine in their house, because it's a good motivation to, keep going and keep progressing.
Yeah. Well, I'm really happy for you. You know, I work with interns here on the podcast, and they're incredibly talented and fun. But I hear these stories out there of young people coming out of college and expecting to, have a job that pays them hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they can sit in a big comfy office, and it's just not realistic for that. For most people coming out of college. Have you had what's been the reaction of your peers who are maybe struggling to kind of get started in their careers and are looking at you and saying, man, you already got this business going?
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of initially saw it the other way. I was like, these people have my friends or whoever have these jobs. They're making a lot of money. They have a path, and I'm over here, at least for a while, trying to launch a business that isn't having much success yet because it was obviously a slow start, and then I'm not able to, take money from it yet. So it's interesting because I have friends who will say stuff like that to me, like you work so hard, or I'm so proud of you, or like what you're doing is amazing. But then my perspective sometimes is they're in a better position because they have an established, steady job, whereas I'm trying to do something. And that's why entrepreneurship isn't always perceived the right way, because it's definitely, it's not steady. It's not secure. There's a lot of reward at the end, but there's a lot of risk as well. So it's funny because people, like friends of mine, see it that way, the way you described it, but then I sometimes see it the other way, just because, especially at first, it was hard to know I was doing something where I wasn't making a lot of money. There's no security. There's no, it's just not known if this is going to get to where I want it to get, or if I'm going to have to restart in 5 years and do something different. So I've definitely grown from when I first graduated, and the business has grown and progressed, and I'm happy where I am, and I wouldn't want it any other way. But yeah, it's definitely a very different situation than most people I know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm hoping that there are a lot of parents out there, especially parents of young girls, who are listening, who might want to share this episode with their young girls and inspire them to dream and to go for their dreams like you have. So, thank you for not only for inventing the toys, but for being a great role model for our young kids.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And it's honestly, I've realized since graduating, I've become so much more confident and independent just by doing this business on my own. And I think it just, I don't know, I hope it's inspirational to not only young girls, but other women as well, because the confidence is oftentimes not there. Mm-hmm. And I think seeing how much I've grown as a person with my confidence and my independence since starting this business is really, it just shows that, if you keep trying at something and you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're doing, you can do it. And it's not just, it's not just the established men who can do it, or the 35-year-olds who can do it. Anyone can do it, and you can do whatever you truly believe in if you put the work into it and you don't give up and you believe in yourself.
Yeah, that's great. And now I know you shared some of your dreams for Toothbrush Toys with us, the series and the characters and accessories. But is there goals longer term that are different from the Toothbrush Toys that you hope to create in the future?
Not at the moment. I mean, it's always been my dream to have my own business, and obviously this started earlier than imagined. So right now I'm putting all my focus into Toothbrush Toys and hoping that this isn't just, a project, but, a long-term successful business. So right now I'm just trying to focus on this only, and there have been times where I'm like, what do I do if I have to give up? What do I do if this doesn't work out? But I'm really, at least right now, I've had some exciting progress lately, and I'm trying to fully focus on this business and growing this business and see this as my at least near future, and not try to, think about the what ifs or look past that.
Well, what I would suggest to you, not that I'm an expert, I'm just a dopey old guy, but instead of thinking about what might I do if this doesn't work out, start thinking to yourself, What am I going to do when Mr. Wonderful comes and buys my
Right.
business for $1 billion?
Right. What am I going to do when I sell toothbrush toys?
There you
Because
go.
it's so successful. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell everybody where they can go to find out more about toothbrush toys.
Yeah, so our website is toothbrushtoys.com. It's very easy to remember. Our social media is also just Toothbrush Toys. You can also find us on Amazon as well. But yeah, all of our products and all of our information is on toothbrushtoys.com.
And if we have an incredibly successful listener, well, all of our listeners are incredibly successful. However, if there's somebody out there looking to invest in someone young like you, are you folks at that point yet where you can have people invest in your project?
Yeah, definitely. I have some, big potential deals happening right now where there will be a lot of upfront costs and I will need, assistance with that. The inventory is expensive and just, having an investor would not only be great for the financial purpose of it, but also having someone else who, has their own insights and opinions and knowledge to put into the business. So that's definitely something that we're interested in right now, for sure.
Oh. And if there's one of those listeners hearing that, how can they contact you?
We have a generic email on the website, which goes to me, so I can respond that way. And then my personal email is,
We can just
I can give it to you after.
Awesome. Hey, we've had a great time speaking to the driving force behind toothbrushtoys.com. Our guest has been Nikki Warren. Hey, Nikki, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. I want to tell you about a couple places you can connect with us on. It's facebook.com/Reading with Your Kids. At Reading with Your Kids on Instagram and at Gently Magic on X. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/Reading with Your Kids. And of course, our website. We'd love to see you at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. We're really excited. I really enjoyed speaking to both Leanne and Nikki. Leanne contacted me after we recorded and let me know that if you go to Bookalicious and you type in the promo code RWYK25, so Reading with Your Kids 25, RWYK25, you'll get 20% off your order and free shipping. That's a pretty good deal. And we want to thank Leanne Orders for making that offer to us. We also want to thank Leanne for joining us. Please be sure to check out Bookalicious. You and your kids can make an avatar and start finding books that you are going to absolutely love. We also introduced Leanne to a book that we recently celebrated here on Reading with Your Kids, Our Lake, by Angie Chang. And we're really excited that Leanne is going to add the book to the Bookalicious website. And we're really happy for everyone involved. Also want to thank Nikki Warner for joining us. Please be sure to check out toothbrushtoys.com. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Stella Sheree, Megan Boucher. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. Hope to see you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.